2019, we called a hearing in House Oversight on what the oil and gas companies knew about climate change and when they knew it. Industry scientists and experts testified that the companies knew the burning of fossil fuels caused climate change as early as 1959, the year the first Barbie doll appeared in the United States, the year that Alaska and Hawaii were admitted to the Union. By the 1960s, before Neil Armstrong even walked on the moon, the science of global warming was well understood by big oil. Instead of telling the world about the perils of global warming and changing their business model, the companies deliberately suppressed relevant scientific findings for decades and then challenged and dismissed urgent calls by scientists to take climate change seriously. Instead of acting like Paul Revere and sounding the alarm about climate change, they acted like Maleficent, the evil fairy in Sleeping Beauty, and cursed everyone to try to go to sleep for 100 years. As the experts told us, big oil's pattern of lying and cover-up set the country back decades in our ability to seriously address the problem. For 3 years, the House Oversight Committee has investigated big oil's 6 decades of climate deception. On September 16, 2021, we sent investigative letters to Exxon, BP, Shell, Chevron, the American Petroleum Institute, and the Chamber of Commerce. Just yesterday, with your committee, we released our final report. Our investigation uncovered compelling evidence of aggressive industry deceit, which continued long after big oil gave up on its outright climate denialism. The joint report and documents we discovered show how time and again the biggest oil and gas companies have talked a good game for purposes of public consumption, but have acted in a completely reckless way to protect their long-term profits in the carbon industry. Company officials admit the terrifying reality of their business model behind closed doors, but always manage to say something deceptive, false, and soothing to the public about climate change. Our investigation reveals big oil's denial, disinformation, and doublespeak, all to lull the public into complacency about the enormous climate emergency we are in and the role that big oil has played in bringing it about. We learned the fossil fuel companies made public pledges to support the Paris Agreement and achieve net zero emissions while internally recognizing that their actual practices would never allow them to achieve these goals. We found the company's PR tactics mutated from simply denying climate science to spreading disinformation about the safety of natural gas and engaging in propaganda about their commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We learned they publicly broadcast and advertised their interest in low-carbon technologies like carbon capture and algae-based biofuels, while internally acknowledging that these pie-in-the-sky technologies are expensive, difficult to scale, and simply not ready for commercial development. We consistently found that the oil and gas companies relied on trade associations like the American Petroleum Institute and the Chamber of Commerce to spread misleading narratives to the public and to lobby politically against effective climate solutions that they pretended to favor. We found they pumped $700 million into universities and academic research programs to influence pro-natural gas studies and findings over renewable energy solutions. The companies paid lip service to global environmental goals, but dismissed them as basically meaningless behind the scenes. BP's website states that it supports the goals of the 2015 Paris Accord, but our investigation uncovered an email revealing that BP trivialized the Paris Agreement, stating that, quote, "No one is committed to anything other than to stay in the game. So instead of BP choosing to take the actual steps needed to reduce its vast contribution to carbon pollution, BP is instead, quote, staying in the game of fossil fuels and carbon pollution." Spinning a fairy tale about their commitment to renewable energy, fossil fuel companies have often advertised their commitment to low-carbon technologies, like Exxon's vaunted algae biofuels program. From 2009 to 2023, Exxon spent nearly half as much on advertising algae as a climate solution as it spent on actually researching and developing it. Our investigation revealed that Exxon's own employees raised concerns that the company's beautiful ads might mistakenly imply that, quote, the technology is live today. But it was never live, and indeed Exxon ended up pulling up stakes on the whole project before it ever produced any energy. When you compare the actual investments in low-carbon technologies to the company's overall expenditures, you see exactly what kind of priority this really is. Shell, for example, spent just 11% of its total capital expenditures on lower carbon technologies, and Exxon and Chevron spent even less, at 6% and 4% respectively. We learned all of these damning facts despite the company setting up huge roadblocks to our investigation. In response to the committee's initial letters in 2021, the companies only provided trivial and publicly available documents, so we sent them subpoenas. And even after being subpoenaed, the companies continued to block our investigation. They heavily redacted or withheld entire documents based on erroneous privilege claims. More than 4,000 documents came back to us substantially redacted. They also used a paper blizzard tactic by producing hundreds of thousands of generic and non-responsive documents. Of the more than 280,000 produced, more than 125,000, nearly half, were mass emails, newsletters, and other fluff documents. If the companies had actually complied in good faith, who knows what else we might have discovered.
2009, Exxon announced a program promoting algae as a new biofuel source that could reduce emissions and launched a massive ad blitz.
Some farms grow food. This one grows fuel.
A series of these ads aired 10,000 times and garnered over 3.7 billion impressions. Exxon spent approximately $175 million on the ad campaign and $350 million on the algae research.
You got that right. Exxon spent half as much on the ads about the research as they did doing the research, and they could have used all that PR money because the research they did do never yielded anything. In one internal 2017 email exchange on this ad blitz, an Exxon research and development executive cautioned that they, quote, need to be mindful that we're not suggesting it's ready to go to large-scale demo.
After all that publicity, Exxon canceled its algae program in 2023. Big Oil used to pretend that climate change wasn't real. The new version is to pretend that they're trying to be part of the solution.
Since 2015, Exxon has publicly claimed to support the Paris Agreement, the biggest international commitment to address climate change in history. But the House Oversight and Senate Budget Committee's joint investigation examining more than 2 million pages of documents revealed an almost comical level of corporate doublespeak to evade the agreement.
A 2019 Exxon memo to CEO Darren Woods urged that an industry document remove reference to the Paris Agreement. Why? Because referencing it could create a potential commitment to advocate on the Paris Agreement goals. Here's America's biggest oil company internally at the highest level avoiding commitment to the Paris Agreement goals they claim to support.
And to give another example, the gentlelady gave the example of what happened in Ukraine. I want to give a closer home example of what happened with Hurricane Dorian when the scientists at NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the National Weather Service, made predictions about where the hurricane was going to hit on the East Coast. And President Trump decided that the hurricane was really going to hit in Alabama. And that was just contradicted by the facts. And NOAA continued to put out notices to the public saying, no, that Alabama was not at serious risk for being a target, and it was going to be on the coast and much further south. And then Trump got very mad about that, and he got the Secretary of Commerce to go after them and so on. And this is really what we're talking about. Do you want the federal government filled with a bunch of political flunkies, hacks, and sycophants who will say whatever the president wants, or do you want professional scientists and civil servants who are going to follow facts and follow the law? The president's job is to take care that the law is faithfully executed, not that the law is disrupted and remade in his own royal image. And so if you want a government that is going to be letting Donald Trump and his Sharpie determine where the hurricane's going to hit, as opposed to scientists, then you would be for Schedule F. But we view Schedule F as a serious danger to the professional civil service that's been built up over the last several decades.